Welcome to the world's oldest form of animal heirloom preservation. Taxidermy is a mysterious process, only understood by showing how hunters remember the thrill of the hunt. Taxidermy preserves that moment forever. Each episode, Eldon Gendreau skillfully creates a different animal heirloom.
The reason we take measurements is so that we know what size form to order when it's time to order the form for the mount. So we go from the corner of the eye to the end of the nose, which is 17 inches. And then the back of the skull to the end of the nose, 29. And I'm actually going to use a scalpel blade as well as a knife to skin this out. This surgical blade is actually a little sharper than your knives, and it's easy to get around the antlers with. Got another knife here somewhere. Oh, yeah, there it is. I've got a cut in the back of the neck, and I'm going to continue with a cut in the back of the neck. I'm going to make what they call a V cut. I'm going to go behind the antler, and it's going to be the shape of a V, so it goes behind the antler so you can't see the incision when I sew it back up. I've done so many of these that it all comes pretty easy, pretty basic. I try to flesh the hide at the same time as I'm skinning it. It keeps me from fleshing the hide later on. I have to over it twice basically. Already I'm near the ear butt, and here's the ear butt right here, and I'm actually going to cut right through the ear butt. See the ear butt? I'll just go right around it. The head weight is probably 150, 200 pounds right now with the cape. And the whole moose probably weighed 700 or 800 pounds dress weight. Live weight, I'd say 900 to 1,000. They're a big animal, and everything about them is hard. The hide is so thick on them that it dulls the knives real quick. I try to do one side, go partially on one side, then go to the other side, just makes it easier. I'll come back and make my second cut now from the V to the other antler. I got to wrestle him around and try to get a better angle on him. As you see, it's quite heavy, so it makes it a little harder to work with. A smaller person might have a harder time. You got to wrestle the moose head 150 to 200 pounds, makes it very difficult. I'm going to cut the other ear butt now on the other side. Then I'll work my way right around the skull. I'm keeping constant putting pressure on the hide. As I'm pulling it, it's easier to cut. It pulls it away from the skull. Here's the other eye socket. I'm going to be turning here in a second, so you'll have a better look at it. You've got to make sure you get in deep so you don't cut the eyelid. Here's one eye socket. There's a tear duct on a moose right in the corner of the eye. You got to make sure you go towards the bone so you don't cut a hole in the hide. Even if I do cut a hole, that's what the purpose of a taxidermist, to sew up all the cutting holes, or the holes from bullet holes or arrow holes or from moose fighting. It's so complex. There's so many different layers in that nose that it's hard to figure out exactly where to cut. Now we're going to cut the upper lip, or the top of the nose, off. This is where it gets complicated. There's a lot of cartilage and a lot of 2 or 3 layers near the nostrils as you're going to cut through. I think what people don't understand is the fact that you're using just the hide and the antlers themselves when you're doing taxidermy. A lot of people think you're using the skull or the teeth or the eyes, and that's a big misconception. They think that you're using, the only thing we're using to mount is this hide right here, which is basically the nose, the mouth, the ears, and the eyes and the cape, and you just more or less slip it on the form and glue it on and sew it on. But the big misconception is that they think they're using the skull, which we don't. In fact, right now we're going to cut the skull plate off the skull right now. We cut the antlers off, and we're just going to have a small piece of the skull plate. It's going to be a little noisy, but we're going to actually cut the antlers off. So here we go. I'll turn it around, get the other side, and it should come off pretty good. There we have it. Taking all the extra fat and meat off the skull. Needs to be done, because if you don't do this, the worms will get into it after you mount it and destroy your mount. So it's very important to get all the meat and fat off the skull as well as off the hide.